I told you, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome anywhere.
Just give me one more drink and then I'll leave.
Hi, Peanut.
Well, first of all, since X-Men the last, and how much have you personally been keeping up with the superhero movie, comic book genre? Because again, I mean, back in 2006, the last time we saw you, it was nowhere near where it is now.
No, it's an entirely different universe. I mean, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, did not exist when the original X-Men movies came out. Certainly not in the form that it exists now. So things have changed quite a bit. Yeah. And I think the first one that I was in, X2, when I look back, I can see how instrumental that was to sort of, starting that seismic shift in comic book films. When I was a little kid, the comic book films were something really, really different, and they were considered to be I don't know, a little bit hokey, I think, almost. And X2 really tried to change that and tried to keep the initial spirit, keep the elements of it that they knew the pre-existing fan base was really excited about, but they also really wanted to elevate it and bring some of the more elevated aspects of storytelling that did already exist in the comics themselves at that time. They wanted to bring that to the screen, and make a movie like X-Men, which is ostensibly about mutants with superhero powers. They wanted to bring the subtext of that to the fore and show that this really was about marginalized people struggling for equality, equal rights, and they were very successful, and the movie was still a ton of fun, and I think that was one of the early movies that showed people what the real potential could be.
Now tell me about the day you got the call to be back for this, because I'm imagining after almost 18 years that this must have been a very big surprise to hear. Oh yeah, we're doing Deadpool, and Wolverine, they're gonna be back together, but also we want you to be part of this adventure again. So what was that? What was that experience of getting asked to be back?
Yeah, it was, you could have knocked me over with a feather. It was pretty much the last thing that I was expecting. I've spent the last 20 years doing very, very different things. I felt like it was very much that the X-Men universe was very much behind me. But yeah, my agent called and she said that the first thing I heard was that Marvel called us. Okay, well, what did they call about? Nothing specific. They just wanted just checking on your availability, just seeing what's going on. So, okay, and then there was another call again, checking availability and this and that, and then another, just all these little forays and them just feeling the situation out, and then finally we got the call where they said, all right, great, so we would love for him to hop on the phone with Sean Levy. And, I knew that he was the director of Deadpool 3 and that's the only thing that it could possibly be about. So, I hopped on a Zoom call with him and he dropped the news and was just like, yeah, we want to bring Pyro back, and is that something you'd be interested in? And of course I jumped at it.
Now, do we get a good idea? Again, I know this. Again, because I'm trying to ask in a way where it doesn't give away too much spoilers, but do we get a good idea of what Pyro has been up to for the last almost 2 decades when we meet him in the film again?
As you said, I have to be really, really careful because I don't want to spoil anything. And it's a very, very, it's very, very sensitive. But certainly I will say that, yeah, well, I mean, when you first see Pyro, you will immediately get a sense of what he's maybe been through during this period of time.
Now, when we first saw you in the trailer, I couldn't help but notice, but that you finally got basically your own Pyro costume after all this time. It's very reminiscent of the comics. Like, did it go through a lot of changes before you guys landed on the final one with the costume designer?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you're absolutely right. Like Pyro never had a proper superhero costume, right? Like that was one of the my sorest points from the X-Men movies is that originally in X2, right? Like there's a big scene where this SWAT team invades Professor Xavier's school for gifted mutants, and they're raiding the school at night, with automatic weapons and laser pointer scopes on them, and all the kids have to run. And so for half the movie, I'm in my pajamas, just running around in my jammies. And then we end up going to a house where I'm able to to swap out to regular clothes, and the clothing that they chose to put Pyro in was sweatpants and a t-shirt. So I went from jammies to loungewear, and that's what I'm wearing when I blow up all the cop cars is my loungewear, and then progressed to X3, and it wasn't really a proper superhero outfit. It was more just like an ensemble from Hot Topic or something like that. It wasn't the real thing. So yeah, when they showed me like what I went for the fitting and they showed me what it was going to be, I was thrilled. It's from a specific, I think it's influenced mainly by this one specific run where, it's the Ultimate X-Men run. And it's this different version of Pyro. In the version of the comic book, it's the one where his face is horribly burnt, like he's used all of his powers and he's burnt himself, and he's in this kind of like almost like a firefighter outfit. That's sort of like what the vibe is, and that's ultimately what they ended up going for. And it was a cool look, and it was like utilitarian, and it had like the firefighter snaps on it and everything. So yeah, putting it on, like I felt like, all right, finally a proper superhero here.
Since you had worked with Hugh Jackman originally, in X2 and X3, I mean, you must have geeked out when you saw him for the first time for this film in his fine, proper costume. At least, like, did you were like, oh my god, like I got to be part of this experience of like finally seeing one of my co-stars finally doing the Wolverine suit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was just thrilled to see him again. It had been a really, really long time, and those early movies were great adventures for me. Like it was very, very early in my career, and prior to the X-Men films, I had just done very small independent films, and it was a really big deal for me. And they were very long shoots. They were like 6-month shoots at a time, where you're away from home, and you and the cast and crew get very, very close. So it was like seeing a long lost friend. So it was great to see him, and yeah, the blue, the classic blue and yellow suit, it's very visually arresting, and I know the fans are going to be really, I think there's a lot of fans who are going to be thrilled to see that. And it was an interesting contrast for me because, way back 20 years ago when we were doing it, they never would have done that, because at that time they were trying to get away from that. They were trying to distance themselves from that, because they wanted this film to be taken seriously, so they made sure to put all the X-Men in like very tough, like black leather suits. So they would
a lot of black leather,
so they could maybe look like, like a leather clad, Navy SEAL team was like the idea, and now I think 20 years later, it's come full circle, and people have had their fill of the black leather. and they're like, all right, well, we did that, and now, let's bring it back to the, to the original, and see how that plays. So it was very cool to see, and I think people are gonna go nuts over it.
For you as an actor, working on like a Marvel Studios film versus, when you did the original X-Men film, what was the most significant difference of, these two, of shooting these specific projects, given, again, like you said, the genre has evolved so much now, from what it was in 2006. So what was the most biggest takeaway? You're like, oh, wow, like, so this is how they do it now.
It's the difference between the old X-Men films and Deadpool 3. I mean, just mainly just the sheer scale of it. It's just enormous. And like, you have to understand, for me, like, again, like I'd only done small films before the X-Men movies. So to me, like, the scale of the old X-Men movies was absolutely, jaw dropping. And so now the difference between what has happened in that interim, it takes your breath away. Like we would go to these sets, and the cool thing about Deadpool was that, at least for the stuff I was involved in, there wasn't a ton of green screen. I think the green screen was an element to it, but a lot of the time they're building out these massive sets. So when you're there, awesome. You feel like you're there. Like when they drove me up to that, like, you've seen it in the trailer, so I can say a little bit about this. You see like a bit of that desert wasteland, and I saw it, and it's absolutely like being transported, and I think that's partially, as you said, just the development of the MCU and how big these movies have gotten in general. But it's also that this is Deadpool 3, and the ambition of this movie it's something people really haven't seen before. So that was that impressed me.
Now, just looking a little bit ahead, because we know that Marvel Studios is finally getting ready to now do their own X-Men, and if you're given the opportunity, would you want to come back? Again, maybe not as Pyro, but like maybe as a different. Would you want to come back as a different character this time?
I mean, it's an absolute blast, So obviously, you always want to know what the specifics are and what the characters are. But I had a fantastic time doing the original X-Men movies. I had a fantastic time doing Deadpool 3. So if I could find myself in a situation where it was a project that was akin to those, I mean, yeah, for sure, I'd love to do it.
And besides Deadpool Wolverine, where can people see you next? What are you up to right now? What are you working on?
Well, right now, what people can see me in is most recently I did a film it's pretty close to my heart, called Finest Kind, and that is on Paramount Plus right now. It's with Brian Helgeland directed and wrote it, and it's with Tommy Lee Jones, Ben Foster, Jenna Ortega, and it's all about this crew of fishermen in New Bedford, Massachusetts. I'm from Massachusetts, so it's very, very close to my hometown, and the characters are very close to my heart because they're similar to a lot of people I grew up with. So it's about these commercial fishermen who basically run afoul of organized crime and get involved in the heroin smuggling trade. So that role was a ton of fun because it was a great story, and again, it was something that was sort of like close to my roots.
Well, awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing that, and of course, this summer. I'm excited. Again, if you'd asked me, like, my 15-year-old said that I would talk to Pyro one day, he wouldn't believe it. So I'm excited. No, because Pyro was like, I loved his chaoticness growing up. So thanks, I'm excited. I'm excited to see like what. I mean, I just want to see you and Ryan Reynolds just banter with each other. That's what I'm like really, really looking forward to. It's
going to be fun, man. Yeah, and it's an incredibly improvisational set, which is amazing for something on that scale. That they're able to be that fast and loose in the moment. You have an idea of just how much money every second is costing. But to be able to be with people, Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy very much worked in this style as well, to be able to have people that are able to work within that framework and still keep it loose, still keep it improvisational, still keep it in the moment. It was really something else.
Well, so thank you so much for your time today. And this interview will go up in July, as I was told. And I wish you a lovely day.
Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
I smell what you're stepping in, Sensei. I am